During World War I, the conditions on the battlefield were treacherous. The soldiers could not wait until they could return home to their families and their normal lives. The thing is, once they did end up returning home, their normal lives were gone. With families and loved ones dead and gone, the soldiers had nothing left, nothing to live for. They aimlessly wandered, having no place to go or no reason to live. These sorry souls are known as the Lost Generation. The term Lost Generation was coined by Gertrude Stein. Stein was a famous poet during the time of World War I. She was known for using the term for the very first time. She said, quote, "You are a lost generation," end quote, meaning that they were carelessly slacking around like they had no purpose. Her writing style influenced the writers of the generation. These writers were in Paris during and following the war, as Paris was a safe haven that had no restrictions on art or writing. It was also very cheap and affordable. That's why many writers flooded to Paris. Stein was a mentor to another famous Lost Generation writer, Ernest Hemingway. Hemingway was most influential of the Lost Generation, as he was an American author and journalist who spread the idea of the Lost Generation and also served in World War I, so he was part of the Lost Generation in both aspects. Stein directly used the word Lost Generation in a conversation with Ernest Hemingway. So Ernest Hemingway used it in his epigraph in his novel, The Sun Also Rises. He said, quote, "All of you young people that have served in the war, you are a lost generation. You have no respect for anything," end quote. This is powerful, as it indicates how society views the lost generation. Hemingway's book, The Sun Also Rises, talks of firsthand how the lost generation acts. He uses characteristics such as alcoholism, aimless wandering, social troubles, and full indulgence. This book is symbolic as well as accurate to what the lost generation was like. It's very depressing on multiple levels. Hemingway's novels influenced other writers too, T.S. Eliot among them. Thomas Stearns Eliot was an American-born poet that wrote many critically acclaimed poems in regards to the lost generation. Eliot witnessed the lost generation in the war firsthand, as he was studying at Oxford College during the time of World War I. Another author was Erich Maria Remarque. Remarque was born a German citizen in 1898. He was drafted into the military at age 18 and served in the Great War. Perhaps his most well-known book, All Quiet on the Western Front, depicted this war, as well as the lost generation firsthand.
As part of the Lost Generation, have you felt that your musical talent has been undervalued and been replaced by the need to fight in the war?
Well, that's an easy question. No.
All right. Since returning from the war, have you been able to find work?
Can you repeat that question again?
Since returning from the World War I, the Great War, have you been able to find work as a musician?
No. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, sir.
This novel depicts a young man named Paul serving in the war. They deal with war struggles and are part of the lost generation. The men struggle even when they aren't fighting. That's how serious the war was and how impactful it was to everyone around the world involved with it. John Steinbeck was another author in the Lost Generation. He was American-born and lived in Salinas, California. Many people know him for his works, specifically of Mice and Men, a classic novel. Steinbeck was in high school during the Great War and experienced the tragedies of the Great War firsthand as well. Steinbeck was also affected by the Great Depression when America went into economic failure following World War I. This inspired Steinbeck to write many other books, such as Grapes of Wrath. This time in the world was very sad and depressing. The general consensus was that the war was wasted and an unnecessary amount of people died and were lost. And even the ones who didn't die were faced with trauma that would affect them the rest of their lives. Lives that weren't even worth living for most people due to the fact that they lost most, if not everything they had. Eventually, this generation grew past their adversities and overcame the trouble and depression. Future generations were no longer lost, and life continued as normal. Yet we will always remember this time as sad and lost. To the many brilliant minds out there that wrote and documented this time for us future generations to know what truly went down following this great war that we now know as World War I.